Good afternoon, folks. This is Omar Serrano with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I am joined by Schnitzel Ninja.
Hey.
I wish I could do your voice thing.
Bitches running wild.
That's not what I meant. It was
Schnitzel Ninja.
Nice.
however you do it.
Oh yeah, Schnitzel Ninja. I used a filter.
Crow, I think you're at the right one. We're talking about Bryan Kohberger tonight. We are talking about, look, there was a 911 call released. There's been a growing sentiment among the general public that this guy might not be the guy. Now, look, we've seen cases like that before. I mean, you know, there's the Karen Reed case. We were just talking about that one, Schnitzel. But more recently, there was the Bridge Guy case, where it's like, that guy doesn't even look like Bridge Guy. That doesn't even sound like his voice, or like he looked way too sickly. There's all kinds of other reasons why people thought it wasn't him. And I actually thought that Bridge Guy, the one that got convicted, was going to be acquitted for various reasons, and he wasn't. Kohberger, look, there is ample evidence. If you're not familiar, I don't know how you would be in this stream and not be familiar with Bryan Kohberger, but November 13th, 2022, 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, they are viciously stabbed to death in an off-campus rental home, like that doubled as like dorms or something, in the dead of night. It's like 3 a.m. or so. Late that morning, there was a 911 call from a residence that reported there was an unconscious person. The surviving roommates and friends, they discovered one victim who wouldn't wake up, were unaware initially of the carnage. They go in and they discover everything else. There was a distraught caller said a roommate was drunk last night. She's not waking up. They saw some man in their house. First responders get there, and then that's kind of how we get there. Now, they released that 911 call. But before I play that, what do you think about this guy, Kohberger? You were just telling me stuff like 30 seconds before we went live.
Yeah, I was just saying that, like, unless someone planted the evidence, the DNA doesn't lie. So the DNA evidence, they found that the scene that matches him and his DNA, to me, is like a no-brainer. Like, that's why we have these kinds of tests, is to be able to link stuff like this. And that's aside from the GPS data, which
there's that.
Right.
Do you buy the story about him? He was stargazing that night?
No, fuck no. No way.
Obviously, I do not.
No, it's so it's like these could someone have had his phone and had his car? Yeah. The DNA evidence is stronger than the GPS evidence, but those two things together, like, I'm not saying I don't want to hear about anything else, but those are very strong. I think can make a very strong case on it being him with even just those two elements.
So I'm gonna play this 911 call. I'm gonna tell you how it helps, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about why I think it may hurt. I don't think it really does anything to exonerate him, but this was the call that came out. Let me play this for you. Tell me if you could hear this or not. Could you hear that?
No.
Do you not hear any of that audio? Really? Hey guys, are you guys hearing audio? Is it just her? I'm wondering, like, if I'm playing audio right now, I wonder if it's just really? Why is that? What if I share my screen? Will that help? Let's see. I'm going to play it and see if this works.
Students were brutally stabbed to death.
You can hear it now?
Reveals chaos and confusion among the callers who realized at least one of their roommates was never going to wake up. The audio released on Friday, a woman called 911 just before midnight on November 13, 2022. She sounded very upset while saying, quote, "Something happened inside our house," breaking down crying. Then she tried to give the address. That's when another woman took the phone away. Take a listen.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi,
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, but we gotta go check. But we have to. What's wrong? He's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20. Here's one.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
Okay.
Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, we have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
That phone call happening around noon the next day after the bodies were discovered. Just chilling.
All right. So, for context, what we knew about the timeline is that they were out partying, or some of them were out partying. They had plans for that night. I think there was a couple of them that decided to stay back. Most of them, the people that lived in that house, like got back around like late, like 1, 2 o'clock. There was text messages going back and forth between some of the deceased. They were caught on surveillance camera, like at a food truck or whatever. There was some speculation that one of the people on surveillance followed them home. But the timeline was sometime around 3:30-ish, 4 a.m., this intruder enters in through like the large screen door that you could kind of traverse or get to from like the hill. And you could kind of go into this wide glass door into the kitchen that led into the rooms. And so like from the kitchen, I remember like there was this upstairs and you would go upstairs to some of the rooms. And there was one room that was to the hall this way.
Mhm.
And anyway, that was the story. And then he did what he did and then he booked. And then there was this question about, okay, so why did it take them like so long to call the cops to do anything? There's some important stuff. I mean, it starts with that first caller. She's hysterical.
Mhm.
She's not composed. She's crying. She's talking about something happened in our house. She says, someone is unconscious. She's saying unconscious. Like, I don't think she understood like what was going on really at that point. Like there's no realization from her that I can hear in that call that there's people that are dead.
Mhm.
She's having trouble crying. And then this other lady comes on. I don't know who that lady was. People said that it might be Bethany. But the second roommate tells the dispatcher that somebody's passed out and not waking up. And then the dispatcher is trying to cut her off, saying, look, I need you to check on her. Is she breathing? Whatever, what happened? They don't want to hear a story. They want to check on this person's health. Some people kind of criticize the dispatcher for that. But hey, somebody might be alive that needs medical attention. That's what they're focused on. She's passed out, not waking up. She was drunk last night. because they were out drinking, they were out partying, they were in college, they're college students, they're living their college lives, you know. And then this guy gets on. Oh yeah, there was a mention that they saw somebody in the house. That's the intruder story. We know about this. It corroborates. And then there's another selfie. In the thumbnail of this video for this live is a selfie that is supposed to have been taken hours after the incident at the Idaho 4 house. It would have been the same night. Is it exculpatory? No. What is it going to be used for? It's going to be used by the defense to corroborate that he had bushy eyebrows and more or less matched the description of the person that they described to the police as the intruder that came into their home. They're going to say that. I imagine the prosecutor is going to say that, well, why would he be taking a selfie and smiling if he had just murdered 4 people? Because he was stargazing.
He's a psychopath. That's why.
There's an argument for that. I'm just saying. It's a weird time to take a selfie.
And also, if you like are trying to hide whatever shit you've done, and there are people who can compartmentalize and act like nothing happened. Then there are people who can fucking cover their tracks, and they can cover their tracks well and make it seem like nothing happened and like they're totally fine. And then there are other people who will break down and admit what happened.
That's one of the prosecution. Well, that's one of the defense team's arguments, is that you guys are looking at this guy because he's autistic, because he's socially awkward, because he has trouble communicating in his emotions, because he has trouble emoting. He looks creepy all the time. He's just an autistic guy. He's not a killer. And, you know, they're trying to use that condition as a defense, because there's been a lot made of the fact that he's this socially awkward guy, that people that knew him thought that he was weird, that he would say weird things, that he was obsessed with serial killers. There's that whole narrative that's out there about him.
And even if you take all of that away and you look at the DNA evidence,
Yeah,
you look
right.
at the GPS, it doesn't matter if any of that other stuff, and I'm not saying that to you, but just in general, you know, it doesn't matter if any of that stuff is true.
Well, I'm of the opinion that he's guilty. I've thought he was guilty the entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, the case kind of closed with me when they found his DNA. There is problems with the DNA that they're going to have to overcome, because the DNA evidence, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. How in the hell does the DNA end up there on the knife sheath, of all things, that was left behind by the killer?
Right.
Unless he was there. It's just so.
Otherwise, is someone framing him? Or are they going to try to claim he was friends with these people and he had been there before, or that they took it from him from somewhere else? I mean, I wonder how are they going to try to explain that away?
They're going to need an expert to come in and say that, look, it was an incidental transfer of DNA that could have happened anywhere. It could have been from some chance encounter 6 months ago. Really? So how did it end up on the freaking knife sheath of the murder weapon?
Right.
That's interesting. And not like on her sweater or something, you know? It's just, you can't, you're right. As much doubt as you want to cast on some of the other aspects of the case, the DNA is the one that people are going to have the most trouble going over. But it is weak. It's not weak. It's imperfect. And I'll get into some of that. The male caller, the male voice that comes in at the 911 call, he says, hello. He starts saying that the woman is not breathing. I don't know. It just kind of, it speaks to a state of mind of these college age students. They're not quite grasping the fact that people were murdered in the house. They're kind of trying to, they're like in a daze. And it's taken them a while to process things that have happened. And then I'd imagine at some point walk in and see like blood all over the place. And they're like, what in the fuck? I don't know if you've ever been in a moment like that, where there's such a shock to the senses, where you're kind of catatonic for a minute because your brain is just like broken.
I mean, when I got robbed at gunpoint, which I know I went on and on about for like 20 minutes before, but that was a moment for me where it was like time stood still.
Yeah.
And I found out that I'm a fight. I'm not a flight.
You're not a fighter. You're
I'm
a
not
fighter.
a fighter. I'm a fighter. In those situations, I was like unbelievably level-headed, and I don't even understand how. I think Yeah. So, but aside from that, I thankfully haven't been, in like a situation like they were in.
Well, no, I mean, there's just the sheer carnage of it all. There's a defense mechanism in your brain that kicks in.
Protect itself.
Yeah, you see it a lot in vets when they see war for the first time. Like, there's some people that just go into freaking shock. There's like these World War I images of people that are just like shell shocked. I'm going to share something with you. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen these before, but there are these cases of these vets, shell shock vets. Check this out. Let me share this with you. Share screen. These are people that developed what was then known as shell shock. I don't know what they call it today, but they saw horrific things in war, and their brain just completely shut down. And this is them now. Now they're trying to document this. This is like probably 1920s or something.
You said 1918, I think.
1918. Just their brain just completely just shut them down, and they never recovered. And it goes on, but the brain has a response to trauma, and in the moments, you're either going to be clear and level-headed and know exactly what to do because your brain is making you because you're on adrenaline, or you're going to shut down and like curl up into a corner and not want to come out of your room because you saw this scary guy wearing a mask in your house, and he just walked past you, and the guy was so exhausted from murdering the other 4 people that he just decided to, you know what, I think I'm done for the night, and then he just leaves. There was that whole narrative. The 911 call to me, obviously, it's a corroboration of there was an intruder.
And that girl was about to go into the story, but she was cut off by the 911 operator, which I understand why, but
yeah,
would have lent more,
She couldn't even get it out. She couldn't talk. She's trying to
she couldn't even say the whole address.
She couldn't barely get the address out. She's trying to piece together what in the hell she just saw, what's happening. I think that when jurors listen to the 911 call, I think that the prosecutors are going to frame it in such a way that the surviving people in the house were kind of in shock. And the 911 call kind of supports that.
And also, I was going to say, like, when you have roommates like that, it's not like a family where like you're getting your kids up in the morning and you're all having breakfast together and stuff. When you have roommates like that, you're friends, but like you're not going in and checking on each other. You're not having breakfast together. You're doing your own thing. You're staying in your room, minding your own business. And I'm also not. And if they were out partying, they're going to be up, or they're going to sleep in late anyway. And it's not typical for people to go in and be like, "Hey, you okay? How's it going this morning?" Like, that's just not normal.
Yeah, like you're their mom or something.
Right.
You're not just barging into people's rooms.
Right.
Don't barge into a college student's room for any reason. Just knock. Right. Also, if you're the parent of like a teenage boy, just knock. Yeah.
Oh, the day will come.
I think the defense, they're going to harp on this idea that what was with the delay with the call, why didn't they call saying our friends have been stabbed? What was with the confusion? And they're going to say that it's somehow exculpatory towards Kohberger. That's been the argument ever since. But I think when you hear that call, it's kind of obvious. It's like, look, they're traumatized about something. Well, what could have possibly happened? I don't know. But what we do know is that they found 4 murdered people in their house, and it was at the hands of an intruder that was corroborated by multiple witnesses that survived. So there's an answer to that question. There's not an answer to, well, I just don't think that position for the defense is going to do what they would hope it would do. I think the jurors are going to be sympathetic upon hearing that 911 call. They're going to see the images from the autopsy because they're going to be forced to. The public is not going to see those, but the jury's going to see that. I think there's going to be sympathetic towards them. And by the way, the 911 call has been allowed to come in. That's 100% coming in. There hasn't been very much of any evidence that's been excluded so far. The defense has been getting their ass kicked when it comes to these evidentiary hearings regarding the exclusion of evidence and things like that. So what are some of the biggest reasons why people are questioning the guilt of Bryan Kohberger? Why do you think it is that for some people that are accused of such heinous things, that the general public sometimes just decides that they're not guilty, or we're not looking hard enough, or, I mean, in the face of evidence like DNA evidence, I don't know. I just don't understand how this culture just grew. I know that there's this one channel out there that has only been posting about Kohberger stuff since the Idaho 4 thing became a thing. Like, I think she even enrolled in the University of Idaho, where the kids went to school, like moved out there or something. She lives in a van, and her entire YouTube existence was like proving the conspiracy of the cover-up of the true killers of the Idaho 4 and the innocence of Bryan Kohberger. I don't understand it. And these are, as best I can tell, these are the arguments that they talk about. They talk about eyewitness testimony reliability. They say that the surviving roommates described a man with bushy eyebrows. And then the Kohbergers are saying that that's an unreliable description because it's inconsistent with the witness's recollection. They say that it was probably damaged by the fact that they were in shock, by fatigue, they were drunk, they were hungover, they were confused. They say it was a vague characterization. They don't have a very good description, or not. There wasn't a very good description for the intruder given. So don't just go pinning it on my guy. That's one thing. And I've heard a lot of people grasp onto that. It's like, oh, so some guy with bushy eyebrows, that's the guy that did it, right? But I thought he was wearing a mask. And if you saw him, like, could I just ask you a question? Take yourself to 21-year-old you. Let's just imagine that you were living in a house and there was some intruder there, and you're living in a house full of college students, and you saw or you heard some noise, and then you peek outside of your room and you see some masked guy just kind of casually stroll past and walk past you. What would be your response? Would you call 911?
That's so hard because, like, is it a friend of my roommates? Did I hear anything that was happening?
Well, let's just say that you were scared. Let's just say that you heard noises and you were afraid. You're like, what the fuck was that? I mean, I'm sure you'd probably hear noises, but she heard noises. She was afraid. She was sitting there, and then she peeks out. She sees this guy coming towards her and then does nothing. Just kind of curls up into a ball.
21-year-old me may not have called the police. I don't know if I would have thought that was enough to warrant a call to the police.
I mean, if you live by yourself, then sure. But there's like 6 other people that lived in there or something like that. At least.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to, like, my personality probably would have gotten scared to call the police, scared, like, at that age to call 911, and like worry that they were going to get mad at me, or I was going to get in trouble for calling for something that wasn't a big enough deal just because I felt scared. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm trying to be realistic, like honest about at that now, 100% today I would call, but I don't know about back then. And if I was possibly drunk, or if I was possibly like super tired.
At 21, it wouldn't be that uncommon for me to imagine a scenario where some unknown person was randomly just walking around at 4 a.m. of a place that I crashed at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I just can't imagine That's
hard.
being.
I feel like it just depends on what their whole situation was. How close were the people? How much did they know each other's friends? How often did they have random people over? Like, had they talked that night about having anyone over? Like, I feel like there's so much situational like information that we don't have
Well,
that
we
it's
know
hard
that
for me to
that
say like, oh, she should have called or whatever.
one of the girls was there with a boyfriend, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure that was like a regular thing that would like people would be staying over. It was a party house. They had parties there all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and so it wouldn't have been. It's not exculpatory to me the fact that she just didn't call 911 right
Right.
away.
Did she say why she was scared?
If I recall correctly, it was because she had heard noises. She heard noises, and she's like, "What the fuck was that?" And I think that she had heard whimpering or like crying, or she heard some kind of a noise that sounded like crying. And then she looked out of her room, and then she saw this man wearing a mask with bushy eyebrows walking towards her. That's the narrative as I remember it.
Mhm.
And then she didn't know what to do, and she kind of just froze as he just kind of walked by. The fact that he walked by would lead me to believe, oh, well, maybe he's just like because he literally just walked by and then just fucked right off out of the
Right,
house and
because
left.
if this was like if you thought your friends were getting murdered and then the murderer sees you and just walks past you, that would be weird. But like why? Why
Yeah.
would they leave a witness, you know, to like them being there?
CJ says, what is weird is that they didn't call their boyfriends. I always thought I would call that be the go-to to call your man. And 21?
I probably would have called my dad.
Yeah, I feel like I would hope that my daughter would call me instead of some dipshit 21-year-old. But I don't know. One of their I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a good one. But calling boyfriends would probably be third on the list behind calling the police or your dad.
And
Maybe second.
Sometimes you're even afraid to face reality. Like you don't want to go out there and see what's going on sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like if you like you'd probably be afraid to even confront that whole situation if you think something like that happened.
Well, I can tell you that my daughters are both really afraid of the dark. Like they won't even go to the bathroom by themselves because the lights are off in the daytime. Like,
Oh,
Dad, could you walk me to the bathroom? It's like, it's right there. Just could you walk me over, please? Okay. And then I'll walk them in there and like shut the door. Don't shut the door. All right. Dad, are you still there? No. Dad.
Mhm.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at 21, I don't feel like in a female or in even some males like that just goes away. Like you're hearing strange noises and you're afraid, and that fear just kind of, I don't know, what age you stop being
I
afraid
mean,
of the dark?
I was 100% like still had some fear because I lived alone when I was 21. I had fear
Mhm.
of the dark. I had fear that like I had paranoia that someone was going to break into my house and like someone's going to be waiting right outside my bedroom door in the dark like if I had to go to the bathroom. So I'd always turn my flashlight on or whatever. Like I'd never even walk around my own place, you know, in the dark.
Yeah. It's so funny. I walk around my house like a vampire. Like all the lights are off. Like I just navigate off a sound like a bat's.
You make like the echo sound.
Yeah. Why do I do this? Like, why do I got to turn on the lights for? I know where I'm going. I know. I make echo sounds. Exactly.
Clicking sounds.
There's this other aspect. There is the presence of unidentified DNA. So at the crime scene, when it was being investigated, it was discovered that there were blood samples that contained the blood of two unidentified men. And Kohberger's team is suggesting that evidence unilaterally points to alternative perpetrators, and argues that the focus shouldn't be on Bryan. There was an article in the U.S. Sun, and this is what they say. I'm going to share that article with you. I'm just going to share it on my screen. Blood from 2 still unidentified men was found at the crime scene where 4 college students were brutally murdered. This was back in February. This had a recent hearing. The suspect pled not guilty at the pretrial hearing last month. His attorneys revealed detectives found blood at the gruesome crime scene that doesn't belong to Kohberger. An unknown person's blood DNA was discovered on a handrail in the home, which you got to admit is compelling, because if we're going to run with the DNA on the sheath,
Right.
then whose blood is that on the handrail?
Mm-hmm.
It raises a question.
For sure.
It's doubt.
Yep.
I don't have the answer to that question. It is compelling. They say unknown person on the handrail. Kohberger's lead defense attorney Ann Taylor told the court investigators found. Yeah.
Do we know if that DNA, if there just wasn't enough of it to, like, was it inconclusive, or was it just they haven't had a match in the database to it yet?
They have the DNA. They don't have a match in the database. And if you recall, I think the way that they found Kohberger's DNA match was like through some like ancestry.com or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm wondering, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If it was a party house and people are drunk there, possibly someone could even scratch the zit open and like run their hand, on the railing when they were there for a party or something. But it's like, you almost want any friends that those students who were still left knew had been over to their house, like, to get them DNA tested to see if it's a match, so at least you could know and rule that person out. But then the defense would say, well, then it could have been that person, though.
Maybe it was somebody that spilled their period cup or something and like got it on the handrail.
Carrying it down the stairs.
I don't know. There was also blood found on a glove outside of the home. There was that. That's from a different person. Not the same as the handrail one. Not the same as Kohberger's blood sheath DNA.
What kind of glove?
That I don't know.
Like a winter glove or a...
Yeah, I'm not sure it says in this article. But the defense says the defense brought the mysterious evidence to court, argue for his arrest warrants to be thrown out. Taylor said the mystery DNA proves Kohberger might not be related to the crime at all. It doesn't prove that.
No, and also, like, if his was found on the railing and it was identifiable, but then unidentified on the knife sheath, okay, I could see that being a good argument for the defense. But his DNA, unfortunately,
on the knife sheath specifically,
was on the knife. Yeah, exactly.
And the prosecutors are not there. They says they're not disputing the DNA findings, meaning Kohberger's defense will likely bring it up again at his trial in August. Taylor slammed the cops for not disclosing the unidentified blood when they obtained a search warrant. Why the fuck would they have to do that? Why would they have to say that when they could just say that, look, we got a match to Kohberger on the sheath of the murder weapon. That's enough. The rest is for trial, bitch. I don't mean to call her that. I'm not calling her that. It's just me being stupid.
Does he look like a bitch?
I was just gonna say that.
It talks about other stuff, but that article just stood for this proposition that, hey, man, there's other stuff going on that maybe we're not talking about. What about these other 2 fucking DNA profiles that are unidentified that nobody is suggesting they are the killers? That's because they weren't found on the sheath of the murder weapon. That was the obvious retort, right?
Or even in like their bedrooms or on the handles to go in the bedrooms.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, DNA is weird. Like, I would have just imagined, as horrific as that crime was, just playing devil's advocate, why would there be like this little trace of DNA on a sheath, given all the carnage that occurred in that house, given that his face was exposed through the mask, given that it was a violent, physical, draining type of crime where he was exhausted? It just stands to reason that there's probably DNA somewhere. I mean, like an eyelash or something, a drop of sweat. Like, but they found this sheath. I mean, that, I guess, presupposes that you're going to be able to scan an entire house and get every speck of conceivable DNA that was ever left.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is a question. It's like, it's fascinating to me that there's just that little that was found, and only on the sheath.
And even on their bodies, like you said, like eyelash, eyebrow, a bushy eyebrow, sweat.
A bushy eyebrow, sweater, or something. I mean, he was covered head to toe, but I can't imagine somebody didn't claw at his face.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a female and you're getting attacked by a large male or a larger male than you, like, what are you going for? You're going for
Or
eyes and nuts.
Even fibers of his clothing under the fingernails or something like that.
That would have been really helpful, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that evidence has been. They definitely found stuff under the fingernails. I don't think they tied it to Kohberger, though.
And that's so hard too, because like it's kind of gross to think about, but a lot of stuff hides under your nails, even if you're washing your hands regularly.
Yeah, it is pretty gross to think about. But there's a lot of dispute over the forensic evidence. The knife sheath, we've been talking about that. They're going to challenge that because they've been saying that it's contamination, or it was deliberately planted. Of course, they're going to go with the planted thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to argue that the DNA on the sheath is less conclusive than blood DNA. It doesn't matter if it's less conclusive. It is conclusive.
So I have a question. If they're trying to say it was planted, wouldn't there be date evidence of when they tested for the DNA and the DNA result came back? And is that how they discovered this family and then this individual?
Well, they're going to have to prove chain of custody violations. Like, how did they get his DNA? Where did this DNA come from? Prove to me that the cops had it ahead of time.
Right.
Where did his DNA come from? Was it just they had it as a piece of evidence in a different case? And they just decided to take this fucking guy and plant his DNA. Nobody knows who he is.
And his GPS.
Yeah. And his GPS, right? It's just too fantastic. It's kind of a stupid. Everybody says, "Oh, I was framed. The cops just trying to set me up.
Mm-hmm.
They just needed somebody to burn at the stake, and I happen to be the guy."
Well, see, like I did mention though, Stephen Avery, and you didn't really comment. So I was saying that I think that he was framed by the police.
Well, I mean, I had that opinion. I'm not so sure anymore. It's been a while, but when that case first came out, it was pretty compelling because they did have his DNA from a different case,
and they had a reason to do it. They were
because of the lawsuit and all of that. I know Candace Owens. Did you watch the latest Making of a Murderer Netflix?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where Candace Owens was like, "Yeah, but okay, the lawsuit, but so what?" Those law officers were not going to be paying out of pocket for that lawsuit. It was going to go from the city. Maybe, I don't know. I'm less certain. I'm really confused about why the appeal didn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But more specifically, I'm really sad for that kid.
Yeah.
But that's another topic for another day. I got like 15 minutes to get through this shit.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I was just saying that's one, but like it's fantastical that the police would plan all of this stuff. I think it can happen, but in this case with Kohberger, I don't think it did.
In the cases where you've heard that people were planting evidence, how many times was it actually a thing?
Probably almost never.
Never. I mean, you could make a hell of a compelling case, but there's almost no smoking gun evidence that ever happened, unless it's directly like on a body cam. Like I've seen body cam YouTube videos where stupid ass cops will deliberately plant narcotics on a guy and then arrest him and then like steal the drugs or whatever. Or I don't know. There's a lot of shady things that happen, but in these high profile cases, I have never seen a case definitively corroborates a claim of I was framed by the cops. Just doesn't really happen. So they're going to argue again, the DNA on the sheath, less conclusive to blood. They're not saying it's not problematic. They're just going to say it could have been any kind of thing, which is just not compelling to me. It's like, okay, then why is my DNA not on the sheath?
Right.
I mean, you and I have never met in person. What if they just randomly found my DNA at like your house, like on a napkin or something? That'd be fucking weird. I'd actually be fascinated if that were like a thing. Like, imagine like if you could just like scan the world for DNA of like weird random folks, and then you just got, for no reason at all, some guy lives in Cambodia, his DNA is at your house for no reason. I'd be fascinated by that.
I think I'd be freaked out.
I mean, I could see it
Like all
happening
the
with like
cameras.
the production of stuff, like the production of knife sheaths, for example. I'd imagine it touches the hands of factory workers and things like that. It touches a lot of different hands before it's packaged and then purchased at this place or whatever.
Right.
Why didn't they not find all kinds of other DNA on there? Why was it specific to Kohberger? I have a lot of questions about the DNA evidence. I'm fascinated about the expert debates that are going to take place at this trial regarding that. That's going to be...
That's something that I understand why it happens, but I get so angry about sometimes is that these experts, I know that they are experts in their fields, but they will just completely disagree. And it's just because that side is paying them. It's like, it's just
Yeah.
not all the time, but I think a lot of the time it's because like they've agreed that, yeah, they'll come in and say whatever, this narrative is that they want them to say.
They don't even have to say that they believe what they're saying. They could just say that, yes, it is possible that in, my mathematical calculations, that Kohberger could have incidentally left DNA by some whatever wayward thing that happened 3 months ago. By the way, CJ, hate to see you leave, but thank you so much for the 5, and thank you for being here from the Court of Random Opinion, Lauren 90. Did you see when she came on my stream earlier? She came in and like completely derailed it, as she does.
Was it the lively stream?
Yeah, no, it wasn't that bad. She was actually really insightful this time. She's getting really good at this YouTube shit, man. I'm really proud of that lady. What's up, Rob? Again, hey, are you going to call in a flat or what, man? I'll drop a line if he wants to do that.
Nice.
Rob might be
audio.
Oh, is anybody else not hearing audio? I feel like people are.
I
think
hear
it's
audio.
Yeah, I think it's a you problem, Rob. I don't know what to tell you, bud. It was, well, I don't know what they're doing in the chat. I just assume, hey, if you folks can't hear me, if it just, let me know if it's just Rob or somebody else. By the way, what are you drinking right now?
Me?
Yeah, you. Orange juice, bitch.
A decaf coffee and a lime with mint extract sparkling water. And for flat, I'll get something else.
Those do not go together, miss. What the fuck?
I know. The coffee's from like 2:00, and then this thing was from dinner, and then I just had to finish them both.
You were drinking like 8-hour-old coffee?
All the time. I never drink my coffee in time.
That is, I couldn't even. I would throw it right out. It's like, nope, it's an hour old. It's an hour old.
It now.
I'm so getting sidetracked, man. All right.
Sorry.
It's not you, it's me, as they say.
I'll go with that.
So here's the thing. They're talking about he has a condition. They say that he's on the spectrum. When somebody tells you that, what does that mean to you? Do you think, I feel like it's becoming more and more a justification for wayward behavior in 2025.
Oh, like Laura Owens claiming she's autistic, and then
yeah, well, just the backdrop of that. My daughter was legitimately diagnosed as autistic, and in the course of getting her actual medical diagnosis, like she was actually diagnosed, they suggested to me that I also might be autistic and I should get myself diagnosed. I was like, what the fuck for? Like I'm grown already. I think it worked out just fine. Like we can't just go labeling every single person autistic. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like shit on anyone's parade that's trying to say that they are autistic. I'm just saying, do you think that it's thrown around way too much to describe wayward behavior?
I don't know if I think it's thrown around too much. I think that a lot of people have things going on that go undiagnosed.
That is true. I believe that, especially from like the 80s and 90s. If you grew up in that stage, they didn't give a fuck. Like, hey, this kid is acting weird. Put him in the special class or whatever. He'll learn. There was no like behavioral training or there was no autism diagnosis in the 80s, which is when I went to grade school. No.
Yeah. So if I hear it with him, I'm like, okay, and like it doesn't affect my. Like it might like say they prove that he did it. So maybe it could help you understand why he did it to a certain degree, but he still did it. So I guess that's where I stand with it. It's like might help me understand like more. Like I don't really care if he does or doesn't, if he is or isn't on the spectrum. It doesn't really affect like my opinion on it. If it,
Well,
you know,
this is what they're going with this, because there's this narrative out there that Kohberger, he had exhibited suspicious behavior. They know that it's going to come out in trial, that people are there's going to be character witnesses to say that, yeah, I remember Kohberger, he's fucking weird. Yeah, he was the TA for this class, and he was really weird. He was really inappropriate with me. He like cornered me and wanted to talk about serial killers all the time. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? I'm just trying to get out of class. And like, there's this fascination he had with serial killers in general.
Mhm.
His lack of ability to show emotion in his face, I guess,
Mhm.
makes him seem unconventionally abnormal, or conventionally abnormal. What am I trying to say? That just
Yeah.
makes him seem, it's a way to explain why he appears to be so suspicious to people,
Mhm.
is the point. His autism, they're arguing that they explain behaviors that might be misinterpreted as suspicious. His emotionless demeanor, his meticulous habits, perhaps he's got ADHD, perhaps he's got a lot of different things.
I mean, I know the prosecution has to try to paint this picture of
Yeah.
him, like why, oh my god, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Aside from hey guys, aside from the DNA evidence, aside from the GPS evidence, they have to also try to paint a picture to try to convince people, like, look at this guy. This is how he is. This is how he made people feel, and so you can follow this path and see, oh, well, this is how he got to the point where he like murdered 4 people. But when you have the evidence like the DNA and the GPS and stuff like that, to me, I'm like, I don't care if he, was talking someone's ear off about serial killers for an hour, like in the library. To me, that doesn't really matter anymore. It's like I'm looking at the actual evidence. And to me, that's not so much evidence. It's like just I know people are trying to paint different pictures using different parts of his personality.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, it's problematic. It's problematic. But look, you could talk about his autism. You could talk about wayward DNA, and that there was 2 other unidentified persons that were not listed as suspects. Why not? And he was stargazing and all of that. I got to tell you, I've examined. We're not at trial yet. We're not at trial. I've just been examining this case from what's available right now. And what I know is that there was a white Hyundai Elantra that was on surveillance. It matched Kohberger's vehicle. He was pulled over driving that car. He was seen on surveillance footage circling the victim's house in that car multiple times around 3:30 to 4:20. You could say, oh, there's like a billion Hyundai Elantras. Maybe, but he owns the one and his DNA was on the sheath.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you want to make, this isn't a circumstantial case because there's physical evidence, but there is circumstantial evidence. And the way that you win a circumstantial case is that one piece of circumstantial evidence is a thread. And then you just keep on building thread, till you just have a fucking rope, and then you pull on that thing. There's no other conclusion is that the guy's fucking guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the car is seen speeding away. There's the cell phone stuff. His phone was turned off from 2:47 to 4:48. That specifically coincides
with stargazing.
Exactly. You see what I'm getting at? This is another thread. Okay, Hyundai Elantra is one. The DNA evidence is physical evidence. That doesn't count. Cell phone data. That was when he was stargazing, but it's also when them kids were murdered.
Right. And when their phone stopped being active.
And it coincided with the time that it would took him to drive there, do the murders, and then drive all the way back and then turn back on his phone.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck, dude? There was phone data that shows at least 12 different multiple visits to that specific neighborhood, oftentimes late at night, where the murder occurred, suggesting that he might have planned this shit. That's going to be irrefutable evidence that's going to be presented at trial.
Mm-hmm.
And that evidence is coming in. They try to keep it out. It is coming in.
Yep.
That evidence is coming in.
And they know it doesn't look good for them, which is why they're trying to keep it out.
Of course. I mean, they're doing their jobs,
Right.
But yeah, there's not a constitutional basis to keep that evidence out.
Mm-hmm.
There was eyewitness accounts that a surviving roommate told the cops that she saw a man who was dressed in black. He was wearing a mask. He had bushy effing eyebrows, walking past her in the hallway around 4 a.m. when his phone would have been off.
Mm-hmm.
And Kohberger himself is described as having thick eyebrows, matches the general build and height of the suspect.
I wanted to say, when I got robbed at gunpoint and they found the guy a couple weeks later, I had to try to identify him. It wasn't a lineup, but it was pictures. It was 8 different pictures. And I did not select the right guy because in that moment, I wasn't thinking, oh, let me try to, like, my brain didn't work that way. It was like, how do I self-preserve? You know what I mean? How do I keep myself from getting shot?
Yeah.
Try to work with him. So I didn't even choose the right person. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen, and that doesn't mean I didn't see his face, you know? Like,
I'd
I
imagine
remembered what clothes, but not the facial features.
No, I buy that. Like in those moments, you're going to remember, unless it's like a taken situation where it's like, listen, they're going to take you. This is very important. I need you to describe everything you see, tattoos, height, build, whatever. And you got those specific instructions and you see in the movie, oh, he's like 5'8", he's a little bit whatever. And then they start, that's in the movies. But more realistically, like your brain kicks into survival mode and you remember just like little bits and pieces, bushy eyebrows. By the way, this is the selfie that he would have taken directly after the murders. He's definitely got some bushy ass eyebrows.
Yeah.
I mean, with a thumbs
he
up.
also looks the white as a fucking sheet.
Yeah, that's the whitest man I've ever seen.
He does not look healthy there. He looks very sweaty and unhealthy to me. And look at those knuckles too. Like why is his hand so red? And then like it's like whiting out his knuckles when he's making that fist.
I mean, the image is like 720p.
Yeah, but you can see a different, like his hand is red and his face is white, like his shirt. He's like, he looks like a corpse.
I don't trust a man that buttons his shirt all the way up to the top button when he's not wearing it. Just want to point that out. Be wary of that guy.
Oh, that's hilarious. What does he have in his ears?
Those look like headphones.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. He just...
And is he in the bathroom?
He looks like there's a shower right there.
This is...
It says this photo is
weird.
Was released by the state of Idaho, which prosecutors claim to have been taken from Bryan Kohberger's phone, gesturing in a selfie on November 13th, hours after the homicide occurred. That's fucking creepy.
What the fuck is he taking this picture for?
That's a great question. It's not an alibi.
And like I'm just thinking realistically, what guy is gonna just take this? Did he send it to anybody? Did he post it online? Did
That's
he just
a great question.
keep it on his phone? Like, what would you take this a picture in this position and everything for?
They don't say why he, if he sent it to anybody or why he took the photo. They just look. It's
fucking awkward. Like, no, that is it's a weird photo. To give a thumbs up to yourself in the bathroom.
What if you were like on a blind date with somebody? He's like, okay, I'll send you a picture, and then he sends you this shit.
Cancel.
Hello.
I'm sick. I broke my vagina. I can't come.
Are you gonna ghost this poor guy? Well, not this poor guy, but like a guy that, you know, what if he's just, well, I could imagine a universe where there's a guy that looks like this, that is not a murderer, that would, you know, I don't know. I don't feel sorry for anybody. Never mind. What am I even saying? What are we doing right now?
I don't know.
Jesus Christ. There's his online activity. He legitimately searched online for specifically KA bar knives prior to the killing. That was the murder weapon.
And didn't he buy it like 3 months prior?
Yeah, and he owned one. He owns one. After the murders, he cleans his car thoroughly.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that too. I thought that he had cleaned his car.
He's seen wearing surgical gloves for some reason when he's taking out the trash. Mm-hmm. Police also noted that he appeared to be tracking the case in detail on his online behavior.
And that's what those fucking people do. That's what those serial killers do.
Yeah.
And a lot of I'm actually I feel like I hear that a lot of serial killers will actually like revisit the crime scene like the next day.
Yeah.
And I don't think he did, or I haven't heard that he did, which I find interesting because if
I heard
he
something like that. I've never heard it corroborated though. He might have.
I think with I think I can't remember who it was, but one of the people they did like a Netflix show about, I feel like showed up. But anyway, I'm just not surprised that he was following the case. If he's the murderer, it feels like it tracks with things you hear about.
Things that killers do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. So look, those are 6 strands of evidence. 5 of them No. Okay. So we got behavioral evidence, his digital footprints, eyewitness account, cell phone data, surveillance video, and DNA. It's a really strong case against Kohberger.
Yeah.
It's a really strong case. I'm failing to understand the angle where I'm missing. Am I missing something? Like, is there a world where there's what is the reasonable doubt in this case? I don't want to hear about the 2 unidentified pieces of DNA, as many people have been in that house with menstrual problems, with a lot of problems, a party house. I'm just saying. I mean, could they even decipher if it was male or female from that DNA? I'd be curious to know.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crow, Flat is coming up like now. Holy shit, it's been going. It's 5 o'clock.
It's just in time.
Yeah.
It's Family Law After Dark.
We're doing Flad right now, and you guys are going to be redirected there as we close the stream. Hey, Schnitzel, you ready to do some fucking Flad?
Yeah, I'm going to go get a drink that's not these things.
All right, I'm going to, folks, we're going to wrap up this Kohberger stream. We're not finished with Kohberger by any means because there are some important hearings coming up for that case. I just wanted to introduce myself into... I haven't talked about this case in over a year. And since then, all of this new evidence is out, and I'm more convinced of his guilt than ever. Mm-hmm. Others are saying that, no way, he's not the guy. What am I missing? What am I missing? I would welcome any other ideas as to why I'm missing things and why he's possibly innocent. I'd love to hear those arguments. So, folks, we're going to wrap up here, and we're going to do Family Law After Dark. If you're not familiar, just tune in. You're going to, well, you'll see. For all of you guys that are familiar with Flad, tell everybody about it. I'll see you guys over there. We're going to begin that show in about 2 minutes. Bye-bye.